one.
Hey, John, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Mike?
I'm not doing too bad. Not,
We've got a
not too,
spooky one this week.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Even looks,
Spooky.
yeah, it looks spooky behind you, the house. And
This is such a classic haunted house
this
film. It's
it
like,
is, and this is your pick, by the way. So you
so I
do
got to give a
well.
shout out. This was actually a suggestion from my good friend Matt. Matt, if you're listening, I've got my goat shirt on. And he was saying that as a kid, this movie used to scare the crap out of him.
Yeah,
So I'm like, okay, we're choosing that next.
right, right. So go ahead and give us the dirty on this one. So
Okay, so The Changeling 1980 stars George C. Scott, the great George C. Scott,
yeah,
who plays a famous music composer in New York and witnesses his wife and child killed basically right in front of him in a car accident. This traumatizes him, obviously, so he relocates to Seattle, where he rents an old mansion. And while he's staying there, spooky things start to happen, weird things, to an extent that he has a seance where he learns that there's the ghost of a murdered child within the house. And you can guess through. I'm not gonna like this is spoiler alert. I'm not gonna tell you
oh
the
yeah,
entire movie
no,
though.
no.
So
This is actually I mean, every week, and for our audience, if you don't know this by now, if you're new to the channel or you're somebody that doesn't normally turn in and tune in much, but we talk about movies that we love, and we talk about we're just two amateur film lovers that we're fans, just like anyone else, and we're certainly not professionals, but this is our opinion, and we talk about the movies, and we spoil the movies for you if you've never seen them,
yeah, but,
most of the time.
really, this is less about the movies than our experience of the movies.
Yes, a lot of times that's what it is, because growing up, like how we saw the movie and when we saw it, and this is one I believe I saw on TV. I don't believe this was one I saw at the theater first, but I could be wrong
I
unless
don't
you.
think this is one of the many ones that I don't think had a great box office
No,
run, but then switched to TV and got a big cult following.
yeah, I truly believe that's where, and this is 1980, and let me just say right from the get go, this is not one of my. It's a real. I love 80's movies. I love 70's and 80's movies. The 70's and 80's horror in particular are the best. It was, to me, that's like the golden time for horror. Other than something like the early days of like Frankenstein movies and Dracula and stuff, which were the 1930's. And we're not taking anything away from that, but the 70's and 80's, man, that was like it just went to another level. There's so many great horror movies, and this is 1980, I believe.
1980. Yep.
Yeah, so it's truly right in the. I mean, it's on the cusp of both eras. Um, I I'm a little critical of this one, and it's not like it's too good. There's too many good things for me to not like it, but there's a little bit of stuff that I will have to say. Um, it's I love George C. Scott, and man,
Hmm.
that guy, he's capable of incredible, and he carries this one through. But I do kind of feel like he was coasting a little bit in this one.
I gotta say, you're probably gonna talk about my biggest problem was with George C. Scott as well.
Yeah, yeah, because I think he was too great for this role.
Yes,
I think that it would have been better with a lesser actor. Not
with
not
a
to
worse
not to
actor.
Yes, a worse actor, because some of the stuff he's so good that he was above the material, and
He
I think
makes it
that.
feel more like Shakespeare than a ghost story.
Yes, yeah, and that's why I think he struggled. I also had a couple of problems with the plot. And you know, I didn't notice it in earlier. I noticed it watching it, and you had said that you just got around to seeing it, the re-saying it just the other day,
Hmm.
and the same thing happened with me. I actually finished it up just before we started watching. I finished up the last part of it, and I had some problems with the plot too, because for one thing, um, it's um, it's slow moving, but I don't mind that. Like, I mean, Psycho's slow moving in a lot of ways for the what people want for horror nowadays. But this is a little slow paced, which I don't have a problem with. But I would have liked a little bit more like eerie creepiness,
Hmm.
um, like
The
when he moved.
soundtrack was amazing.
It absolutely was. There was the sound. There were certain things that were better than the overall film. So, and don't think that I'm like just putting this movie down, because I'm not. I'll tell you what my rating is at the end when we do our thumbs up, thumbs down thing. But I'm not doing that. But I'm just giving you my critiques of what I and part of it, on the plot thing, and I like I said, I just got through finishing up the last part of the movie. I felt bad that that old senator was probably a corrupt, evil senator, but I actually felt bad for the guy because he was an orphan, and his it was
Yeah,
the
he seemed utterly unaware of the evil that was committed on that child.
I don't think he truly realized that his life came about because his father, the adopted father, was an evil bastard that killed his own kid because he was ashamed of the kid and buried the kid. I don't think he knew any of that shit. And so when George C. Scott's confronting him, like, and his first thing is, "Oh, you're going to blackmail me? Well, how much do you want? You know, to shut you up?" He just wants the guy to go away, and he's like, you don't have any right to this." And it's like, well, who's the house going to go to? He was the only heir because the father made him the only heir,
Mhm.
and he just knew that he was given this St. Christopher medal that was a copy of the medal that his own kid had, and so he really didn't know any, and so I mean at the end he's starting to cry almost, and that's when George C. Scott's like, okay, just take all this stuff, and he walks away. So I actually felt bad for the old bastard, but and to me the kid should have gone after his old man. you know
You
but
know, my biggest problem, if I could just boil it down to a single sentence,
yeah,
is this isn't a horror.
yeah, it's
There's horror elements, but
yeah,
it's an extremely sad movie
yeah,
for so many people. George C. Scott watches his family die in front of his
yeah.
eyes. They
And
start
that
with
was
that.
that to me, that was the worst scene too, because it's his daughter and his wife, and they're both
They're on
wiped out.
vacation.
Yeah, in front of his eyes, by a snowplow in a car.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, it's just horrible. And,
So there's
and
that. You feel bad for the ghost, the kid that's a
yeah,
ghost that was
yeah,
murdered by his
absolutely.
own father. You feel bad for the senator. I mean,
Yeah,
it's it's a tragedy.
it really is. And to tell you the truth, that is probably, when you talk about like horror scenes, that is probably, and they show that a couple of times in this, the father coming into the room, grabbing the kid who's a cripple. I mean, this kid can't even fight back. Not that he's even capable, but size wise, but he's in a bathtub, a slippery bathtub, and the father grabs his feet and pulls his feet up so that his head goes under. He's watching. The kid's looking up and seeing his dad above him, his own father, holding his feet and killing him. So I mean,
And he's just lost his mom.
yeah, yeah. So it's the whole thing is like that to me is probably like that was when I, as far as something that scared me, that was probably more like, whoa, that's
That was a horrific death. And I'm actually wondering if the ratings people had an issue with a child murder right on film.
yeah, yeah,
It
that
wasn't
could very,
overly graphic. It wasn't like bloody or anything, but
no,
still.
but it's still it's traumatizing to I mean, just saying it is like, whoa. And I'm jaded, so are you.
Mm,
We've seen a lot of horror, but so having said all that, I'm not putting this film down by any means, because it's I can tell. that there is a genesis of from burnt offerings. This, I think it was definitely helped to be inspired by burnt offerings, but it's not a ripoff of burnt offerings. It's a different, it's a different tale. So that in that sense, I love creepy old house movies, and believe me, if we did a whole series on creepy old house ones, think of how many we could pull up.
Oh,
So
we could do a whole year. We could do a
yeah,
solid year.
yeah, and great movies. So again, no, nothing disparaging about the fact that it was, like I said, it's similar to Burn Offerings, but they're two entirely different movies. And I mean, the Burn Offerings one is more about like a house that a house that's alive or something. This has nothing to do with that. This is clearly a little kid haunting the house that's furious that he his father killed him, and he wants his body to be found. He
The
wants
part of this
revenge.
film that I really enjoyed and that I wish they had put more of the focus on was the detective story.
Yeah, yeah,
Tracking down these clues, finding out what really happened.
yeah, yeah. And the other sad part, because that was another thing that I was thinking was it was so far after. 'Cause, I actually, when I first started watching this again, I was thinking that the old senator was actually the father.
Huh,
And because one of the thoughts that ran through my head was, well, the statute of limitations has run out. You can't even prosecute the guy on this. But that's not even what it was. He was actually the kid that got adopted. But when I realized that, I was like, okay, well, this is about the murdered kid wanting like just his
his
body
story
found.
told.
Yeah. So like I said, it was it probably came more into focus of why. But I still thought to myself, man, if he should have like gone after his old man. But of course, that is not what the movie's about. But
Right, right. So I mentioned this in the short, but did you know this was based on a true story?
um, I I did hear the who was it? Was it the director that or the screenwriter that he
It was the
stayed in a
writer
house that
Russell Hunter that
okay,
lived in
yep,
that rented the house,
yep,
but he made it into a book, and then another person, William Gray, made it into a screenplay,
right,
and then it became the movie.
yeah, yeah, and I'm not sure. I'd love to know more details. I'm not sure how much of it was dead accurate, but I mean, the way it sounded like he had experienced some of the same things in the house. And listen, I've been in places that, whether someone believes in that or not, I've been in some places that I felt were truly haunted and actually had some experiences that I thought, yeah, something weird's going on here. So, so like I said, it's I believe that you definitely there are whether it's somebody that when they die there's energy that's left behind, or whether it's what you would call a ghost or a specter or whatever the hell it is. But there's something that's left behind, and it often pertains when people investigate past events of the house. It often really pertains to real events that happened, and especially when it involved a tragedy or some traumatic death, whatever. It that seems to be the houses that are most affected, and I truly believe that there are places that retain whatever it is. It could be just energy, but whatever it is. And so I'm fully of a mind that you could be in a place that it's there's something in there that's not right. But
Well, according to the writer, this guy stayed in, it was the, let me see, the Henry Treat Rogers Mansion in
okay,
Denver, Colorado.
he was yeah, yeah, that was the other thing. This was filmed in a lot of places, right? It was filmed in
It was primarily filmed in Canada, but yeah,
wow,
there's some scenes in New York.
Was it Brit?
Um,
Was it Vancouver or British Columbia? Where
yeah,
was it?
I think it was Vancouver, BC.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, like I said, I thought I thought there had been some in Colorado. You just said Colorado, but
Yep.
didn't they do the? I think they created a facade on the but of the house, but didn't they actually have some of the actual house filmed, or what did they have? Because it's been torn down
From what
since
I
then.
hear, they could not find a mansion that fit their vision. And so they
Right.
ended up getting a more modern home and then building a facade on the
Yep.
front to make it look like an old mansion.
Okay. Well, that was when I started rewatching this again. That was one of the things when I saw the house, I was thinking they're going to rent this house in this condition. And the other thing was that they had that poor old bastard that was out taking care of the grounds and doing some of the inside work. And I thought, there's no way this old guy's going to be able to keep up with this place. But the other thing about this, and that is George C. Scott must have spent a fortune to refurnish the house. There was some stuff in the house, like the piano, but the house was fairly empty, and he filled it with furniture. And I have to imagine that that furniture was put in there by him. And so I hope he was insured because the whole place goes up in the end.
Well, it's
And
weird. So he rented in the movie, he rents that place
yeah,
from the local historical society.
yeah,
And I'm like, you can do that?
yeah. I never heard of that either. But well, he did know that woman. She was a wealthy woman and she knew people. So I think she kind of eased him into it and probably said, okay, well, this guy is, he's somebody that, is he's not just a regular Joe. He's going to be somebody that can actually take care of the place and pay the rent on it and all that. And
And presumably his name is known. He's a famous
yeah,
enough composer that they would know him.
yeah, yeah. I mean, when he that was another thing. I kept thinking to myself, when does he have time to teach? When does he have time to do his work? Because he got so involved in this, I thought, wow, he's there's no way that he's going to be able to continue to do all his work. But then again, I think he had a lot of he came in as a respected teacher that and his first class, it was a bunch of people that just wanted to hear him play. So I mean, he was that well known and that well connected. So yeah, it's there are some things you have to suspend reality for, but like I said, it's a pretty good movie overall. It's definitely one that now they did it wasn't a remake, but there's another movie that was made in the 2000s by Clint
Hmm.
Eastwood, and that is called The Changeling, and it does have a not the same plot, but a similar plot about a kid, um, and that like this woman starts thinking her kid isn't hers. Um, I have never seen the movie, and I don't know how connected that is. But Clint Eastwood's involved. I don't know if he was actually the director or whether he was but he's directly involved with the movie somehow. Um, but that was like 2000 something. Have you heard of that one or?
I have not. I know there was when I looked into this movie, there's an
Yeah,
Italian movie called Until Death that was put out in 1987
yeah.
that is an unofficial remake of this film.
Okay, okay.
And they're
Yeah.
planning to do a remake.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there is a the Changeling remake in the works right now. They
Wow.
announced it in 2018 and they're still establishing like cast, screenwriter. They plan to set it in Venice.
Oh, wow, wow.
So I'll be very interested in seeing what that's like.
Yeah. To tell you the truth, I would be kind of intrigued about that because, I mean, I would hope they would do it, you know, justice, make it, you know, uh, if it's going to be a remake, it should be a little bit of
Oh,
a
I mean,
homage to
and
this one.
they're quoted as saying it's more of a reimagining than a
Okay.
remake.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that can mean a lot of things. Not good
And
and bad.
could you go back to that last picture, that last slide you had up?
This one,
Yeah. Now that is Claire, right? The
yeah,
historical society
yes,
woman.
yeah,
So she is played by Trish Van Devere,
right.
who is married to George C. Scott.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that. I
This
mean, I
was their
know,
sixth movie together.
wow, okay. Huh. I did not know that. That's a nice piece of trivia. I know her from different parts, but yeah, I didn't know that that was something I didn't connect or know about. So that's cool. That's a nice bit of
Yeah,
trivia right
it was I
there.
learned that before I rewatched the movie, so it was fun knowing that going into it.
Yeah. Well, they had chemistry. I mean, they definitely did have chemistry, but you
I know
didn't.
that they didn't actually hook up or even
Yeah.
date or anything, but you knew something was going to happen.
Yeah, you definitely and they I mean just their interactions they if and I'm sure it was because they were married in real life, but it it felt like they were already like in a relationship whenever they were on screen together. So that was that was very it was realistic to not only the movie, but yeah, now that I know that, that's pretty cool. Uh,
Now, now here's my issue with George C. Scott in this
yeah,
movie.
yeah,
He is too rational. Like
yes,
you're never really afraid
yeah,
because he never really seems afraid.
no, 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 and during the now that you just actually made me think of something else because during the seance, I never got the impression that he was feeling fear, only like it was almost like he was a scientist and he was just intent on,
Right?
he
It was
seemed more,
intellectual curiosity.
yeah. And the taping of but there were so many things like when he like was sure that the metal was in the ground, that to me, because he says later on to her, they're not going to believe that didn't plant that or that I because they didn't see me like dig it up. And it's like, well, why didn't you tell them that you're pretty sure there's a metal in the ground that would identify the corpse? Because they already came there and collected the bones. And so that was the time to say there's probably a metal in the ground that will actually don't wait until they leave and then go back and dig it up yourself and then say, well, I can't give this to the cops anyway. So now that was another thing that there's two things that I can bring up that I had a little bit of a problem with. One was I thought it was a little hokey with the wheelchair. I would have liked to have seen that wheelchair appear earlier in the film,
Mhm.
like just even if it was just like a phantom that was being seen sometimes, because that would have been creepy as fuck to me. But waiting till the end and then her just being terrorized, that almost seemed a little silly to me. And
Yeah, if they'd shown it, if they'd shown it in the house early,
earlier, yeah,
and then George C. Scott's character would catch
yeah,
it through various places throughout the
yeah.
movie.
Yeah, and I would have also liked to have seen a little more terror out of George C. Scott. And the guy is one of my favorite George C. Scott roles, and we've got to do the movie, and that is the How I Stopped Worrying and Learned to Love the Bomb. The
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
thinking that too. We have to pick that at some point.
yeah, we definitely do. It's and hey, listen, it still pertains to today. So
More than we'd like.
maybe yeah, more than we like, and maybe more so. But but yeah, he was fantastic as the crazy general that wanted to get us into a nuclear war, which unfortunately there's still a lot of people that wouldn't mind seeing us in a nuclear war. Um, but
Oh man, talk about horror.
well, yeah, that is your real horror. And the other thing is to think that we can all survive a nuclear war. It's that was we figured that out. One of the reasons why the Cold War kind of came to a slow, long close was we kind of figured out we can't have a nuclear war. Everybody kind of had it in their mindset. Now, for some reason, all these countries are thinking, yeah, well, we can sort of just start lobbing nukes in, and then the one that throws the most of them, uh, after it's all over, and it's like because even in Doctor Strangelove, they were because one of the big jokes was how they were gonna like the leaders were gonna go down, all these old dudes were gonna go down into this bunker, and they had enough food, and they were gonna bring a bunch of nubile young women to repopulate the earth with. and and it was like, yeah, we'll come up in 30 years, and it's like, really, you're not even gonna be alive. but but yeah, they actually, at least back then, they were talking about the idea of hibernating in a shelter until for 30 years, whatever it was, probably 60 years, but it still would have been safe. But but yeah, like I said, we can't survive a nuclear war. For any leader that's listening to us right now, we can't survive a nuclear war. It's not gonna happen. If I mean, it could happen, the war, but we're not gonna. No
The
one's gonna be
living would
alive.
envy the dead.
Yeah, there's gonna be a bunch of cockroaches and rats that are gonna survive it, and that's what's gonna be left on the earth. The rest of us are gonna be gone.
Okay, let's get away from nuclear war for a
Yeah,
while and
I
get
know.
back to
I
the
know.
movie.
We got too dark there. But
Speaking of
okay,
dark,
yeah,
if this movie has one thing by the ton, it's
yeah.
atmosphere.
Hmm. Mood and atmosphere. Yes, absolutely.
This is one of the most gothic movies.
Yeah,
That's the precise word, gothic, that I've ever seen.
yeah. It truly describes the house and that setting, and even the lighting is the low lights in this movie.
The soundtrack, the
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. It's truly gothic. You're absolutely right. Now, another criticism that I have to get out of the way, and that is the seance. I always, for anybody that's making a movie like this, when you get somebody for, if you're going to get a creepy or a lady to do the seance, have her be creepy, but don't have her look like she's somebody's aunt, somebody's weird aunt, and with a shawl on or something. It's like, I hate that, and
Oh,
it's
she's got to have a shawl.
yeah. They always have like a lace shawl or something, but like it's like, oh no, not another one of these ladies. I mean, even Poltergeist got ruined for me because of that lady with the voice. It's and there's certain movies that just like, why do you have to do that? But that's a very small criticism, but that was the seance with the lady. It's like, pick somebody different. Don't have that
Yeah,
cliche of
I want to see this guy walk in looking like a businessman. Like,
yeah,
okay, we
yeah.
ready?
Or I'd rather have some like evil looking like a Satanist dude that looked like like LeVay or
Anton
something like
LaVey,
that, with a goatee and just we can dress you up like
are we ready to
yeah,
contact the
yeah.
dead?
Just have somebody that maybe just looks like they're more like I said, more serious, more like an Anton LaVey kind of a look. Um, not the cliche of like the woman with like a tight perm, and a that looks like somebody's Aunt Martha with a shawl. But yeah, that's like I said, that's a small criticism. But
You mentioned burnt offerings, but you know what movie this really reminded me of? It kept going through my head as I was watching
yeah,
it.
what's that?
Ghost Story.
Oh yes, yeah, you're at. Yep, definitely. And you know something, that's a favorite of mine, and that's
Hmm.
another one that me, you, and your brother saw
Yep.
together. And I
And that
think that
was at the
movie,
drive-in.
yes, it chilled my shit, as Richard Pryor used to say. That
It's
was
another, much like this, it's another slow burn.
yeah, yep. The scene, there's a scene where um that one dude sleeps with the red-haired chick who's actually the ghost, and he wakes up, and she's not in the bed, and he gets up and he like takes a walk looking for her, and I think she's standing by a window, and she's completely nude. She's got beautiful porcelain skin and red hair. It's fair skin, but she's standing there in the dark, and she's like lit, like there's light on her. She's got this ethereal glow, and you're like, whoa, like she looked like a ghost. I was like, man, if I saw that like in real life, I would have been, whoa. I think I probably would have turned around and ran. It was that, and even in the movie, like I said, it was just chilling to me. But yeah, that movie had some scenes that made me go, oh, yikes.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was heavily influenced by The Changeling because they
Yeah,
really remind me a lot of each other, and that
yeah.
came out a year after The Changeling.
Well, and you're right, because even the plot where this one, it was the with Ghost Story, that was a bunch of guys that had all conspired together to dispose of this woman's body, so that and cover the murder up. So it was I think it was an accidental killing, if I remember right. But
Yeah, it's been too long. I
yeah,
don't remember
it's
that.
been we need to do that one at some point. But
We're gonna keep coming up with
yeah,
movies.
exactly. Well, you just reminded us of another great movie. That's a terrific one from our youth. But no, you're right. There are a lot of similarities, and probably more so than Burn Offerings, because that was completely gothic.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, but yeah, it's I George C. Scott is so good that I think we both probably are feeling that he was too good for this movie.
I wanted someone that freaked out a little more,
Yeah,
that emoted, that almost hammed it up.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Donald Pleasance probably he might have been too much, because Donald Pleasance sometimes is over the top. But but my God, sometimes when you're thinking of lines that he did, like in Friday, or was it, yeah, Friday the 13th, or no, not Friday the 3rd, Halloween. That was
Yeah,
Donald
yeah.
Pleasance in Halloween, and like just the way I looked into his eyes and all I saw was darkness. It's like,
You had to remind me of that because you know what I just saw Donald Pleasance in?
what's
Buffy
that?
the Vampire Slayer.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah, yeah.
A
He's
very different Donald Pleasance.
Yeah, for sure. But no, George C. Scott certainly didn't let this one down. It just he's got such a
A
it's
gravitas.
yeah, it's yeah, exactly. He's got this it's like Richard Burton or Laurence Olivier or somebody like that, putting them into the role. It's like they're too big for the role.
Hmm.
And not saying that, again, I'm not putting the plot of this down or the movie down. It's just like some people have too much weight for a role,
Hmm.
and I think that's probably my biggest criticism of him being in the
Yeah, we're
role here.
watching this and you're like, look at the ghost. I'm like, the ghost. Look at George C.
Yeah,
Scott.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Look at his presence on the screen. So yeah, you don't want the actor to overwhelm the movie, and I think that it probably, for me, that's a little bit of, I think, what I found problematic with the movie. But again, um, I I don't. There's now that is, I believe, is this. She might have just been a witness, the woman that's to the side of George C. Scott there.
Mhm.
But and again, look at George C. Scott. He's like totally like intellectualizing the seance. He's got a tape recorder going. He's like, it's like there's no like holy shit. Even though there was some wacky shit going on during the seance, because the seance is kind of scary. Um, but again, um, I'm giving my critiques. I'm not. Yeah, that I actually didn't even have any stills of the wife and daughter. Not that they're in
Yeah,
the movie
I
very
mean,
much.
again, it opens up with this. It's
Yeah,
like this horrible scene.
yeah, and it's funny because the place I work at too. It's not. I mean, this isn't something funny, but I know a person that worked with like oil spill cleanups, like on the highway when something happens, car crash or a tanker truck or something like that. They go and vac it up. They bring in a vac truck. And I know a guy who actually was hit by a big vehicle, probably a snowplow, some big vehicle, that plowed into him from the back. And that was one scene I actually remembered, was that they were going to get hit, and I was thinking, man, I don't remember it, but I hope they're going to show like them behind, because at one point they were pushing the station wagon, and thankfully they don't show that. So that's something for anybody who hasn't seen the movie and is listening to us now. This, as much as we're talking about some of the scenes, like the drowning scene with the kid, I don't. This is not a movie that's like overly graphic,
No.
like violence wise. The worst scene you're probably going to see is the scene in the bathtub, and it's brief. They're flashes, so it's not like there's nothing. I don't see anything that's going to be like um, too much for most people. If you like horror at all, this
I
is,
think you could put this on television right
yeah,
now.
you can. You can absolutely. And in today's day and age, you certainly can. So, but I don't know. Like I said, hopefully we're not turning anyone off to. There's not like this scene that's behind Dom. There is a scene where a truck comes down and hits the car. They get
But
hit,
it's
but
off
they're,
screen.
yeah, it's totally. You see George C. Scott. That's another thing that dates the movie. He stops for a telephone booth. Well, actually, they were stuck there, but
I
there was
couldn't
a,
believe there was a telephone booth there. It
yeah,
looked like it was in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, who
yeah.
puts a telephone booth
That
there?
was a little, but I do remember like times if you were on a rural road, if there was anything nearby, and probably there was, if there was a telephone booth, it probably was only maybe a mile further. They should have just walked to, but and that's another thing that was sorely lacking in this film was cell phones. Because there were so many times that if they had a cell phone, they probably could have got out of it. And the other thing is, the poor wife and daughter are out having like a snowball fight, and that's why they were out. They were out. They could have been sitting in the car, because apparently the car's broken down or out of gas. I don't know what the deal was, but they could have been inside the safety of the car, and they still would have got hit, but they probably wouldn't have been killed. But unfortunately, I think they probably got like pushed by the car or whatever it was, or the car got like pushed over them. But you don't see any of that, so don't anyone watching don't think that you're going to see graphic gore or anything like that, because you're not. It's
The whole movie is atmosphere. It conveys
yeah,
everything through this heavy, weighty feeling.
yeah. If there's anything that's going to scare you, that's what it is. It's as Dom was rightfully pointing out, it's the Gothic atmosphere. That's that's what's just overwhelms the film. The whole house, everything, that wheelchair. Back when in my old antique and fine art delivery days, we moved a wheelchair that was like that. I don't know why somebody wanted it, because I
Maybe
just,
they were a fan of the Changeling.
well, we put it in our truck to move it, and it was going with a few other pieces to a house. And all I could think to myself was, man, why would you want to bring that? I don't know what kind of vibes, talking about like, something people leave behind. It's like anyone that had to like spend time in that chair, they probably weren't real happy. And I just wouldn't want to like, I could see putting it in a museum, but like putting it in someone's house for entertainment purpose, I don't know why you would want it. I just wouldn't. But no,
But when it came to like ominous signs,
yeah,
portents, I thought they used that red ball more effectively than the
yeah,
wheelchair.
yeah, absolutely. And that to me was probably the very fact that they show before he moves out of his, was that New York apartment that he
Yep,
had,
yep.
um, before he moves, when they're packing up the stuff, um, he has this picture in his mind of his daughter saying, "Hey, Dad, catch," and she's throwing the ball to him, and and the ball actually like falls out of a box that the some assistant or a person that worked for him was carrying. And then of course later you see a similar ball, that keeps showing up, this rubber ball. And so it's almost like, and maybe that's part of why he got so involved in it, because his daughter had died, and the ball being there too maybe like pushed him
It,
into
it's
it.
it's the only reason I can think of to start the movie with them dying
Yeah,
like that. That
yeah,
trauma drove him through the rest of the movie.
yeah. Now, there is a scene where he's actually more, showing fear, trauma, whatever. Um, and that is actually when no, actually, that's when the house was pounding, um, when he was trying to open that room. And all I could think of is, you led him to the room. Why are you pounding the house now? Like, encourage him to open the room.
Well,
Instead, it's like,
I read something about that because someone
really?
was talking about this movie online, and they
Yeah,
said initially they were like, "This guy's trying to help you.
yeah,
Why are you throwing things in his way?"
yeah.
But then the person said, "The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this is the ghost of a traumatized, abused child
That
that was
child. Yeah,
murdered by their father. So
yeah.
don't expect them to be entirely rational."
Right. And that's the thing with this movie is, that kid couldn't have been more than what, eight,
I'd say
seven.
8 or 9.
Yeah, he wasn't very old. So I mean, and to die like that as that young, I mean, that's a ghost that would absolutely have tantrums. So,
Mhm, mhm.
so yeah.
But
Um,
again, a lot conspired to make this movie more sad than
yeah.
horrifying.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. I do think that was probably more. I like I said, I don't know what kind of, I don't know what the senator's politics were, or how bad he was like as a politician. But I when George C. Scott confronts him in the last part, I actually really felt he was a really old guy that was just dealing with a lot of trauma at a very late stage in his life. And I thought to myself, leave the old guy alone. Just leave him alone. You
Oh,
can't.
he gets his whole world pulled out from under him.
Yeah, he did. And he had a picture of his father on the desk, his adopted father. He thought the guy was an okay guy. He really, I don't think he knew anything about the thing about George C. Scott is telling him. He goes, your whole life's a fraud, and there's a kid that's buried in a that was buried in a well, and this is his medal. And he's saying all this stuff. I don't think he like had a true, you know, even if he heard something about the guy's son, the original son dying, I know damn well the father didn't say, I killed him. I put I drowned him in a bathtub and I threw him down a well. There's no way he told an orphan
And if
kid
you're
that.
not good, I'll do the
Yeah,
same
I'll
to
do the
you.
same to you. You'll be next. So yeah, like I said, I don't think that's what it was. He actually did seem like he truly loved the father. So to me, it was just like, just leave him alone. There's nobody to give the money to that. Like, if the kid was still alive, if he was a grown man that had lost all his money, then yeah, I could see like saying, okay, you better give him at least half of whatever you got. But at that point, there wasn't any, there was nothing to be gained, but pursuing it. So that was another tragedy, was that by the time that does happen, uh, all that stuff happens, it's too late.
Hmm.
The father is the one that you would have loved to have seen punished for.
Hmm.
I would have loved it if the father was an old bastard sitting, sitting in a
But
wheelchair.
this story was less about retribution and more about having the truth come to light.
Yeah, yeah,
I,
and I
I don't
think,
think the kid wanted revenge. He just wanted to be
yeah.
found.
Well, and that's another thing with, I think a lot of times, if you actually believe or can entertain the idea of a ghost being somewhere, then I think sometimes that's what they want, maybe, is to be for someone to know who they were and what happened to them. Sometimes that's all they need, and it's enough to maybe even rest, so that they don't have to feel the need to be, like, draw attention to the, yes, I'm here in this house. I think that sometimes, and again, I don't, some people, not everyone believes spirits exist or whatever, but if you do, to me, like I said, that's my theory is sometimes it's that energy is caused by whatever happened that they can't rest, around. So, uh, again, uh, not everyone believes that. I do, but yeah, good movie, good movie. And I mentioned my problems with the movie, and other than bringing those things up, this is a classic film that when I think of the 80's, or the 70's for horror, this firmly cements itself into place for as one of those entries. It's well done. The
It's a
cinematography is great.
flawless ghost story.
Yeah, extremely atmospheric. I mean,
Modern lovers of horror will probably be disappointed by it.
yeah, it's too slow moving for a lot of it doesn't have people running out with a knife stabbing people, which I don't particularly like myself anyway. This is could the pace could have been a little quicker,
Yep.
and I think it would have helped the film. Um, there could have been a little bit more. I'm not talking about jump scares because I don't think they fit for this movie, but I would like, we talked about the wheelchair. I would have liked to have seen even just like somebody seeing it out of the corner of their eye or something, like move into another room and then
Mhm.
go into the room and there's no wheelchair in there. And it's like, whoa, what was that? I mean, I would have liked to have seen a few things that made you, rather than just the bangs, I would have liked to have seen a few, like, because I don't know, like I said, my the experiences that I've had with something that I would consider more supernatural, my experiences were something subtle. They weren't something like something flying. It wasn't a poltergeist thing, something flying across a room. It was something like you notice a door close or something happening that's you see something out of the corner of your eye and look and it's like what was that? And it was like that was more. It's more like subtle things um, that you get your attention is getting called to. And I would have liked to have seen a few things like that in it, but those are minor criticisms. So overall, I got to say, good performances. Um, they're for the for the most part, other than like I said, the seance. I would have liked to have had a couple of people that were a little more authentic, uh, looking for what I would have liked to have seen for a seance. But that's true of a lot of movies. But overall, terrific acting.
Yeah,
And
I'm calling it with two thumbs up.
yeah, I absolutely will give you. I want them to be seen on the screen, but two thumbs up. So absolutely, this is a good movie. Um, so like I said, I won't put it down as my favorite, but it's a damn good movie,
Mhm.
and it certainly is an 80's. If you haven't seen it, you ought to see it. Just be
If
prepared.
you want to see it, it's on Tubi right
Yeah,
now.
yep. And like I thought I had already owned it on Vudu, and I didn't. But thankfully it was, and that's the great thing about Tubi. We're not getting sponsored by Tubi, although if you want to sponsor us, Tubi.
We
But
should change our channel's name to the
yeah,
Tubi worship channel or
yeah,
something.
yeah, something will get us to get actually sponsored by Tubi. But because it's a believe me, I love the service that Tubi offers. It's
It's
you
got
get
some ridiculously good movies for a free platform.
yeah, absolutely. And so I think we probably said, please like and subscribe. We're probably coming to the end here,
Yep,
but
yep.
Dom, good pick. You
Well,
had
and Matt, good pick. Thanks for thinking of us and throwing this our way.
yeah, really, we love yeah, absolutely. We thank you, Matt. This is a one I hadn't seen in a while too, and I really hadn't. There was a lot of things I didn't remember about this movie. So yeah, thanks for actually picking it and asking us to do it. Please, anyone watching, we love
We
getting,
welcome any recommendations.
yeah, if you have a recommendation, something you'd like to see us talk about, tell us. I mean, we'll even, if we have one that we say we're pick, we'll swap something out and take your pick even. But um,
In lieu of a recommendation, it's your choice next week. Do you
it
know
is,
what
and
we're going to be watching?
I've got something that I actually think I'm actually amused by telling you this one. I'm not sure you've seen it. You might have seen it. If you haven't, or you have seen it, it's probably been a while. I haven't seen this movie since I was probably 17, 18 years old. And it is available. It might be on Tubi. In fact, I think it is. But here it is. Eat My Dust.
Huh.
That
I
is
haven't seen that one.
that is Ron Howard.
Wow.
Yes. That's an early Ron Howard movie before Happy Days. Um, it's a young Ron Howard, and it might have been one of the ones that actually, because I think he maybe had some experience with directing, production, whatever. So it was probably an early effort by Ron Howard. But yes, Eat My Dust, and he has a lots of car chase scenes. I haven't seen this in ages, so I can't even, when we watch this, we might both be thinking to ourselves, wow, this is awful. Or it might be awfully good. so so I happened to catch a trailer the other day, and I thought, wow, I've got to pick this. So there were definitely ones that I I could have picked that were certainly better ones, or better.
Mike, we're going through all movies,
Yes,
regardless of how
yeah,
good, when they were filmed.
absolutely.
Everything's fair game.
So this is my pick. It's called Eat My Dust. so, so and all I can think of is Chevy Chase in Christmas Vacation when he says "Eat my rubber," and the kid says something like, "Dad, I think it's burn rubber." but anyway, yeah, this is the movie, and so it's going to be a fun watch. So anyone that hasn't seen it yet, we're going to be talking about this next week. So check it out if you want to get a viewing in before you hear us talk about it and see what we have to say. It's been, like I said, been a long time for me, and I really don't have a full memory of this movie. So I know there's a lot of silliness. So
Well, I look forward to it.
yeah, me too. So Dom, having said all of that, I think we had a fun talk this week. That was a cool recommendation,
Yep,
and
I agree.
yeah, uh, I was very very happy to revisit the Changeling. So, um, folks, we'll see you guys again next week, and eat our dust.
Yeah. Next
Dom,
week, another movie.
take care, buddy. So long.
I'll see you, man.